Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Lighten Up Project. Boy, oh boy, am I have a treat for you. What? I always say that every week, don't I? Don't I always say that? And don't I come through? Really? I come through for y'all. I know I do. Because I said I do. This week is no exception. I have for you a very dear friend of mine. She is a speaker, author. She has TEDx. She has a TEDx talk. That's the word I was looking for. Talk. Yes. She is the director of the nonprofit, along with her husband, the nonprofit Speak, Feed, Lead. It is a program for youth to help them find their voice and to help them explore. When I lose the words, then the gestures come up to explore. To explore finding their voice and putting it out there in the world. So please welcome my friend, Jackie Bailey.
Hey, Malcolm. It's fun to be here, and I'm so glad that you're doing this podcast. I know it's going to be such a treat, as you say, to anybody who listens to it.
Yes. Definitely is. Jackie, would you mind joining me in 20 seconds of spontaneous laughter?
I would love to.
All right. Let's go.
That's awesome. That is not.
Jackie, share with our audience, if you will, your relationship with laughter.
My relationship with laughter. It has been, I'd say, in the last 5 or 6 years where it's been a good relationship with laughter. Before that, I didn't feel like I had much to laugh about. I'm kind of a witty person. I'm not put on the spot and be funny kind of person. And I'm not necessarily a comedian, but I can, in the moment, come up with something clever and witty. And so I can make other people laugh. And I really enjoy making other people laugh. But usually being witty, it's not like people go, hysterically breaking out laughter like we just did. But they'll go, yeah, that was good, So I've in the last 10 years, I would say I've started to embrace that ability to just be witty in the moment. But I don't know that I had a lot of opportunities to really belly laugh in my younger years. But life is great now, and so I find more time for laughter. And in fact, at some of the retreats that I've had, we've had a laughing yoga expert there that would get us laughing every day because it's that important.
Yes. Great. Yes, it is. I every time I ask that question, I love hearing different answers, especially from people who think the first thought is, well, I have to be funny. And there are some people who they they have it in their head. They tell the story, I'm not funny, and therefore I don't have a relationship with laughter. And I love hearing that story because that's actually part of what this podcast and the World Laughter Organization, what it's all about, is it's about changing that dynamic a little bit, whereas, leaning more towards the yoga laughter, leaning more towards the therapeutic laughter, the fun, we don't have to be funny. Laughter, in episode 2, for my listeners, if you want to go back to episode 2 in season 1, the humor tree, that's where I define laughter and humor. But real quickly, I'll give a very brief overview. Humor, it's not just comedy or jokes or being amusing, but it's also the play, the natural play that we have, the natural, like the animals, they have their natural sense of humor, their natural sense of play, which is where laughter comes from.
Yeah.
So it's just a quick aside. All right.
Well, and speaking of animals, that is often what makes me laugh the hardest, is watching a puppy play or a kitten. They're just so free and natural that they do the quirkiest things, and it makes me laugh. And so those are the simple joys in life, right?
Yeah. Very, very much like babies and young kids, that's why some of the, back in the 70s, I'm giving my age away, but, back where the smile, you're on candid camera, the Bill Cosby, I interviewed these kids, right, to get their reactions, and just their very innocent reactions, not trying to be funny at all. They were very hilarious just because of that innocent naivete kind of thing that you'll find in animals. Is great. Yeah. And that actually is a great bridge to my next question, which is you work with youth, and tell us what's something that young people do that gives you incredible hope.
Oh, that's such a great question. And I love what I do because of that outcome, quite frankly. When I work with a young person, maybe for the first couple of times, for sessions or so, and let me back up a little bit. A lot of times parents who start to see that their kids are not communicating well, or they're not speaking up for themselves, or they're giving answers to questions that are only 1 or 2 words, they start to think, is there something wrong with my kid? Why isn't he or she talking? Why is it so hard for them to seemingly make friends or to connect with people? And so they'll look for someone that might be able to help their kids. And I'm so grateful that many times they find me. And so they'll have a conversation with me. And of course, I like to have their child there. And the parents will tell me what they're seeing. And then I'll go to the young person and I'll say, is your parent right? Do there merit to what he or she's saying about you? And many times they'll go, I don't think so. But then there's other times they'll go, yeah, I could see that, And all the times, 99% of the time, it's based on their quietness, if you will, of pertaining to the youth, is because they're just not sure what they can contribute. Contribute either to a conversation, to a relationship, to a team, to a project, to the classroom. whatever it is they're involved in, they're not quite sure how through communication they can contribute. And so rather than go to some place that's unsafe or that they're unsure about, they'll just be quiet and they'll answer as minimally as possible, right? So the joy for me and the hope that I have comes from when I start to work with one of these young people and I help them recognize what life has taught them through their experiences and how those lessons now can be used to inspire other people, to uplift other people, to be better friends with people, to communicate better, to connect, to engage, whatever the case might be. And every child's purpose to work with me is different. But those are the things that bring me joy, is when they have the aha moment and they realize, wow, I didn't really know before this that I had something that was of value to say. And now that I recognize I do, I really want to get out there and say it. That's magic for me.
Now, you're mentioning connection and all the value once the young person opens up in their communication. And you also mentioned in your seminars or seminars, I think retreats.
Retreats, yeah.
Yeah, the word you use, that you often use laughter yoga, someone to come in and do laughter yoga. Is there any type of laughter involved in the work that you do with the youth?
Yeah, actually there is. Sometimes kids are they're under so much pressure these days. And they don't often take a moment to release that pressure through laughter. And that's a great way to release that pressure. And if I sense that during one of my coaching sessions with them, we'll do an activity where I take my hand and I'll put my hand up like this and I'll ask them to do the same. And then I'll instruct them that they're going to take their index finger of the other hand, and they're going to just trace the outline of their hand with it. But as they're doing that, every time they go down into a valley, they laugh. Belly laugh. And then we come back up and then we drop into another valley and laugh as hard as we can and then come back up. So we do that. I have done that many times, and then we'll go with the other hand as well. And that's just a quick exercise to relieve that pressure, whatever it is they're feeling, to center them again on focusing someplace else where they can do the most good and quit worrying about the homework and the chores and maybe the relationships with parents that aren't as great as they hoped. And they can just focus on, for this moment that we're together, let's just focus on your message and let's focus on how you contribute. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So now, what would you say, what tool or what advice would you give a student or a young person who felt alone and just overwhelmed? Is there one thing that you would use today in today's society?
Sure, I use it all the time with my students. Dale Carnegie authored a book probably 100 years ago. I should look that up because I keep saying it's about 100 years ago. I should really look that up. But I think it's a classic by this point. It was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in that book, he is quoted as saying, "You can win more friends in 2 months by being interested in other people than you can in 2 years trying to get them interested in you." So when someone tells me that they're lonely, I say, well, it's because you're not interested in other people enough. You're waiting for people to come to initiate conversation with you. Not going to work. It's going to take a long time for it to work. So my advice always is, even to young people, and I teach them the 5 codes of conversation so that they feel comfortable initiating conversations with people so that they never have to wait for someone to be interested in them. They just need to be interested in other people, and they won't be lonely anymore. And that would include joining clubs. It will include becoming part of a troop, like a scout troop, or part of a church or some sort of other social or community organization, that's where they're going to make friends, and that's where they can engage. And again, that word contribute for them, which for young people is really important. They need to feel that they belong somewhere, and that means contributing to something. And that's the way that they can get out of that feeling of loneliness, is to learn how to engage with other people and just go out there and make friends.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. Tell us, what first drew you to this work?
Well, it wasn't my life's mission, that's for certain. I grew up in a household where I was abused and therefore silenced, and not being able to tell what was happening to me, because that was a threat that that I shouldn't ever tell, or I was taught to lie about what was happening to me. And having been silenced like that, I can tell you that it truly changed my personality. It changed my relationships, and it changed how I felt about myself. And I didn't experience the ability to start to heal from that until I was a young woman, married and had 2 children of my own, when one of the people that was a chronic abuser of mine throughout my childhood then had their own child. And I was forced into this position of knowing that child was in danger, and yet no one knew about my history. And so I had this groundbreaking news to share, and yet it was going to rock not only my world, but the world of my immediate family, my husband and children, as well as my family of origin. And it was a scary situation. And it left me living months and months in this emotional turmoil of suicidal thoughts, knowing that I had this responsibility to say something, but also not wanting to rock the boat, as you would imagine, with what that news might bring. And in the end, I realized that I couldn't leave this planet without letting someone know that that child was in danger. And also because my own children might have been in danger had no one known that that person was someone to be concerned about. So I eventually did break my silence and started to tell. And it was in those moments, as I was talking to individual family members and friends and revealing my secrets to them, that I began to realize how important my voice was. And that as I started to release that literally through my throat and through my voice box out into the world, I was healing. I was healing little by little. And I can say now, Malcolm, that years and decades later, every time I share my message, I heal even more. And I know, because people approach me every time I speak and say, thank you, that your message changed me. Your message helped me to open my eyes and my heart for another action I need to take, or someone I need to tell, or something I need to say. And so not only do I heal each time I share my story, but I know that that power of healing is provided to the people that hear my story, because so many of us have similar stories to share. So that leads me to my mission today, which is no child within my influential sphere is ever going to be silenced if I can help it. So my program, the Speak, Feed, Lead project, is about helping to unsilence children and give them a voice and a stage to speak on.
Yeah. Okay. So in one sense, how can we make healing less heavy?
We need to communicate what we're feeling. And that doesn't always mean that we have to say it out loud. Sometimes that's challenging. It's hard. But what I started with, based on this wonderful therapist that I had, was to start writing. There is something magical when you put a pen or a pencil in your hand and you write on a piece of paper. We don't do that as much anymore because of the computer technology that has come into our lives. But there is something healing about taking an instrument in your hand and releasing through ink on paper your feelings and memories and thoughts. And so that's what I would suggest is start writing down your feelings, your memories, your thoughts. And that will be healing enough. And then when you're ready, start speaking it.
Right. Okay. Very good. Excuse me.
Did I choke you up? Okay, 2 seconds more of laughter. Okay.
Oh. The spontaneous laughter, just
the best.
Yeah. You're talking about healing, and then adult laughter just...
It's a relief. Wow. It's a relief.
Yes. Okay. Yes, it is. So, and actually that again goes right into the question that I'm going to ask. So, how would you personally define healing? And then 2, what role does laughter and or play into that?
Wow, these are great questions. What is healing? Healing in my book is the ability to release pain, trauma, memories that have been unhappy, that have changed you in not a good way. I don't want to say it's in a bad way, but that have changed you in a less than positive way. And when we start to recognize that we are not necessarily the person that we really want to be, it's because something inside us needs to be healed. Something inside us needs to be changed. And so that's what healing is for me, is recognizing the need to change something in ourselves. Gabor Mate has said that trauma is not actually what happened to you. It is how it changed the way you think about yourself because of that actual trauma. So when I use that to describe the childhood abuse that I suffered, there was a lot of trauma there. But what actually happened that was more traumatic was the silencing that took place, to where I had to hold it all in, and it changed me by being silent. So that's the real trauma. Yeah.
Trauma definitely does. It changes, it rewires the mind. Trauma rewires the mind. Yes, so that's a great quote. Thank you. So now let's go through that trauma, now belonging. So now you're working with a child. They're starting to blossom, starting to open up, starting to belong. Could you describe for our audience, what does belonging feel like in the body?
Well, that's different for everybody. I've had students who claim that belonging feels like home. It feels like a warm blanket around you. It feels like freedom to be who you actually are with no one to judge you, right? Or not feeling like you're being judged by anyone, or that you're satisfying anybody else's requirements of behavior or whatever, right? I've had people describe it as being serene, having serenity or peace. So it feels different. Belonging feels different to everybody, but I truly believe that we as human beings have that in our nature. We have to feel like we belong somewhere, whether it's to a family, to a community, to a church, to a troop, to some people would call it a tribe or a network. And when we don't feel like we belong in one place, we seek out the belonging in others. And So it is such an inherent need in us that if we can help our kids to feel like they belong in positive and good places, then hopefully we won't have as many of them leaving home or taking substances or acting out, all those types of things.
What does lighten up mean to you?
Lighten up. There's a couple of meanings to me. First of all, what came to mind was feeling lighter is that sense of releasing the pain, the emotion, the pent-up energy, hostility, whatever the emotion might be, right? Is lightening your actual body by releasing something through writing, through speaking, through laughter. So that's one way I look at lighten up. The other way is to look toward light, look up toward light, something, a power that is greater than you, someone that you admire, someone who has been a positive influence on you. Look toward their light, look toward their example, their brightness, their ability to be a positive influence on you and others, and try to mirror that or find that sense in yourself that you can do the same.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Beautiful. 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 So just to let our listeners know, I have links to the book that Jackie was talking about by Dale Carnegie. I have links to Jackie's nonprofit. Jackie, would you like to say a little something about the podcast you and Todd do?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, so Todd Cuddeback has been the president of the board of directors for the Speak Feed Lead project since its inception. And he's also been a great friend of mine for 16 years. And we have done a lot of nonprofit organizing and training and teaching leaders in organizations. And what we didn't know in all those 16 years is that we were somehow being led together. I was in a marriage of 40 years to someone else. And during, like I said, 16 years of that, Todd has been just a really good friend. And when I filed for divorce from that husband 2 or 3 years ago, Todd was there to say, hey, by the way, I've kind of been in love with you this whole time. And I had no clue. And I had no clue. And so we were doing a podcast for 8 or 9 years. It was called Life Mastery Radio with Todd and Jackie. And we were bringing on guests that were enlightened, if you will, people that were astral travelers so that they could, in their mind and through the field, travel to different places and see things that were happening. We'd had guests that were Akashic record readers. We had guests that could remember 1,000 past lives. I mean, kind of woo-woo stuff, right? But then we also had guests who were looking at, say, the 10 Commandments in a more metaphysical way. So I was really growing and opening, and not only opening my knowledge, but my heart as well. And a lot of these people now are my best friends. And so we had done that for many years. And then Todd took a hiatus because he had cancer and he was going through treatment. And then when he told me of his feelings for me, and I considered it for a little bit, I started to realize, there's something there. There's a spark there as well. And then when we got married, we decided, hey, let's rebrand. We're kind of rebranding our life. Let's rebrand our podcast and breathe it back into life. So Todd's favorite word, and he used it a lot on Life Mastery Radio, was groovy. In fact, he'd start every episode going, it's another groovy day. That's because I make it that way. And so when we were coming up with new names for our rebranded podcast, we thought, we're in the groove. We are finally in the groove. Both of us in our lives feeling like we're in the groove. So let's call it in the groove with Todd and Jackie. So now our focus is not necessarily on the woo-woo space, although we still love to talk to those kinds of people, but it's mostly on let's give a stage to the people who may not often get to be heard. So that includes young people, and it includes entrepreneurs, it includes parents and families that sometimes have great ideas to share about how they're staying connected and engaged with their kids that we would never hear from, right? So those are the people that we really like to talk with now, is people that are coaches and consultants or actual families going through the motions of real life with their kids and the struggles that come with that, and hearing what they've found that works for them and that's positive. So it's about getting in the groove and how you get in the groove every day. So that's what we like to hear from our guests. And we're having a lot of fun with it.
Cool. Sure.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Yeah. Lovely. All right. So as we end our interview today, this has been just fabulous. We could go on forever and ever, but alas, we don't have that much time. What's the one thing that you want listeners to remember about this episode?
Thank you for that question. I appreciate that you've given me voice today, Malcolm. Like I said, we can't be silenced. And so when people like you allow people like me to use their voice to share messages, it changes the planet. So thank you for that. What I want people to know is that you have something vital to say, and the world needs to hear it. And if you're afraid to say it, start writing it down. Write it down. Get it out. You can throw it away, you can burn it, or you can start sharing it with people. But if you're nervous about saying it, just start writing it. Get it released out of you. Laugh, cry, yell, whatever needs to come out, but let it be released from you one way or another, and don't stay silent any longer.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. Lovely. All right. Lovely. So as I said, we do have all of the contact information for Jackie Bailey in our show notes. So please, please, please refer to those. And please contact Jackie, and she's a wonderful person to know, if nothing else. Even if you don't have children, just contact her because she's wonderful. I don't know Todd, but hey, if Jackie chose Todd, Todd must be wonderful too. He's groovy, I hear.
He is groovy.
All right. Well, Jackie Bailey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And all the rest of you, thank you so much for tuning in. Tune in next week for yet another stimulating conversation. You can go to our Facebook page that will tell you about the upcoming guest. And until then, remember, chuckles can create change. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Stressed out, stuck, or leaning on autopilot? It's not a motivational problem, it's a connection problem. My weekly virtual improv classes boost engagement, collaboration, and retention, all while having fun. Register now for a complimentary month.